Hey guys, how's it going? Screen Team is here, and we are ready to close things out for this edition of the show. We've got one more review to do for you this evening. We've got Laura Butler on the show, and Laura and myself, we're getting ready to review a movie called Hacksaw Ridge, which is unbelievable. Not just the movie, but the story itself is truly an unbelievable story.
Yeah, it's true, but it was it's one of those things that you're like, how could that anybody have ever happened?
So let's get the setting for the folks. It's World War II era. Mm-hmm. We've got a young man named Desmond Doss, I think is his name.
Doss, yes.
He is, I want to say a hillbilly, but he lives in the Virginia, or West Virginia kind of area. Comes from not a lot of means.
Nope.
And his father was in, I think, World War I.
Yes.
And he's struggling from post-traumatic stress syndrome. Mm-hmm. He's struggling from being an alcoholic and a lot of other demons, and so he's got a lot of issues. He's got a lot of turmoil in his life, and early on in his life, he decides that he is going to follow God and follow God in a way where he's not going to take another human life. Correct?
Yes. He things like you said, circumstances that happened to him in his life as a child. I mean, his father and some other things that happen. It shows in the show. Bring him to this. I mean, it's like his whole life is like do no harm basically, and he not only won't take a life, but he won't harm someone at all.
Right.
So I mean, this movie got me in the feels because I was just, you think about people and how even as our country right now, we want revenge because these people did this to us. Mm-hmm. Or even in your own personal life, someone does something to you and you're like, oh, I want to get them back for that. Mm-hmm. Well, to have the mindset and have a faith strong enough to know that, it's all going to work out in the end. I don't have to be the one that uses the hand of judgment, that it takes a lot for someone to have that kind of character. And that really spoke to me in this movie. And he was a hero.
It's crazy because, he is somewhat of a pacifist, and he is someone who doesn't want to take life, but he doesn't get drafted into the war.
No. He
volunteers to go into the war.
Yes.
So a guy who doesn't want to take life decides, you know what, I'm going to do my part. I'm going to sign up, I believe it's for the Army, and he wants to go into combat as a medic.
Yes.
He wants to save life, and that causes a lot of friction with the military services because they're like, hey, you need to take care of business. You need to take that gun and do it.
Yes. Well, in that era, in the time of World War II, men were men then.
Yes, they were.
I'm not going to say any more on that.
What are you trying to say, man?
But you know what I'm saying? I think that men stood for something more. I'm not saying no men today stand for that.
No, that's what you're saying. That's okay.
That is not what I'm saying.
Did you hear that? We have it on video.
It is not.
We have it on audio.
I'm not a feminazi.
That's what Laura's saying.
I'm just saying that I think that the chivalrous, courageous persona that men had back in those times, I think that it's faded some today. I'm not saying there are no men that are still that way. My dad was a veteran, and a lot of my family members, and I have friends that are veterans, and I am behind them 100%. I think that anybody that puts on a uniform is willing to die for their country, and it just that era, just they stepped up. And that was what you were expected to do. It wasn't just, if you weren't that way, then you were basically going to pay the penalty for it. Because if you didn't step up, you were a coward. And they didn't differentiate between the two.
That's true. That's very, very true. He says that in his in that trial that, he says that there was two of his friends or people who lived in his town who couldn't serve. And they ended up killing themselves because they couldn't serve.
Yes.
That's what kind of that's the big deal of how it was back then. So Desmond is going through some tough times. He's trying to be able to be combat ready, but obviously he can't because he can't hold a gun. He can't fire a gun, and he's got issues with the military courts and stuff like that. Well, he ends up being able to serve.
Yes.
He goes into battle, and there is a battle. I'm not sure the name of the battle, but I think it was in somewhere in Okinawa, Japan, and it was a place called Hacksaw Ridge, where they're basically going up this big mountain thing, right?
Yeah, it's a cliff. To me, what it looked like was a cliff that plateaued to another cliff, and then the ocean. So they were on the backside of this cliff, and they had to go to the top, and because the Japanese had taken this area, and it was a high point, so they couldn't take them out, and their job with his unit was to take this point and get the Japanese, either demolish them or get them to surrender.
And the Japanese did not want to surrender. They were going as far as they could to survive. And I mean, when you see this battle is intense. It's ugly. It is
it's very graphic.
Very, very graphic. What did you think of the particular war scenes in this film?
It was a little bit tough for me to watch because I've got a cousin that's a Marine that's seen battle, and I've seen my father is a disabled vet because of battle and was injured in Vietnam, and I've heard their stories, and it's terrifying. And when you see it on a film like this one, you know that actually happened. Maybe not exactly picture perfect the way it happened then, but it was, as far as the imagination will stretch, it happened that way. And to think, I mean, it humbles me, because to think that there are people out there that are brave enough to go and do those things. The movie choked me up, just like now.
I mean, we have this battle, and the American forces are getting hit pretty hard. They've got to regroup, so they go back to their base. But Desmond is still up on the cliff by himself, and he has a moment of faith, and he has a moment with God where I don't want to say there's a member that he is there's a member of the army that he's at conflict with in the film, but he's also, I don't want to say, they're kind of friendly with each other too. They respect each other's beliefs and the way that they are. And that gentleman, that young man, passes away, and at that moment, Desmond is at a crossroads. He doesn't know what to do, and he speaks to God for help. What do I do? And God talks to him. And he hears a voice out in the distance saying, "Help! Help!" And he goes and helps a fallen soldier, brings him back.
Lowers him down the cliff.
Lowers him down the cliff. You think that's it, but it's not. He hears another cry for help, and another cry for help, and another cry for help, and he ends up saving 75 wounded soldiers. 75 wounded soldiers.
Yes.
The story is unbelievable. So that's the basic premise of the story. Hopefully we didn't give too much stuff away, but Laura, what was your overall thoughts, and did you love the picture?
I did. I really loved it. It had every array of emotion all throughout it. There were funny parts. I mean, sweet. I mean, terrifying. I mean, just humbling. It puts you through the whole spectrum. But the heart in this guy, and then at the end of the movie, they come back and they interview the real man. You know, and it's just the things that he says, like, I don't know, it's just hard for me to, like, I'm not that brave.
I'm not either.
Gladly admit it, you know. I don't know that I could do the things that he did. I love people, but I don't think that I could withstand the things that he had to withstand to be able to do what he did. And I mean, you know, just shout out to all our military, law enforcement, everyone that puts their lives on the line every day for us. I respect you.
You know, he was a very, very brave man, but not necessarily did he have a way with the ladies.
No, he was not smooth.
There was that one scene where he meets his future wife, and he's just like staring at her. He's like,
"Hello."
"Hello. I'm here. What do I have to do? Give blood? Really?"
Yeah.
All right. And he goes back the next day, and he gives like the corniest line ever. She's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm here to give blood." "Well, you can't give blood 2 days in a row." "No, I don't want to give it. I want it back."
Well, the one clever piece there. I mean, it was, the movie was just amazing, but there was a clever piece that if you catch it when he's in basic training, they have to. Vince Vaughn plays his sergeant, staff sergeant or whatever, and they have to learn to tie this rope into a specific knot.
Right.
And if they tie it one way and it doesn't give, then they'll hang themselves. And if they tie it the other way, then they'll fall to their death. So you have to learn to do this. Well, when he ties his rope, it looks like a double hangman's noose.
Yeah.
And the dude's like, what, are you going to hang yourself twice? Like it's completely, but remember that part when you watch the movie.
Very
That's
true.
all I'll say.
Yeah. It's a very, very good film. It is a war film. There is a lot of violence in it, and I believe it is rated R, but it's definitely worth a watch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Movie's called Hacksaw Ridge. Laura, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah,
appreciate you. We got another hour-long show coming at you next Saturday at 6 p.m. right here on KWOC.